Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. Coming up in the next hour, Pakistan Army Chief calls for stable hands, healing touch as election results show no clear winner. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu orders army to prepare to evacuate hundreds of thousands of Palestinians from Gaza's Rafah. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar starts day 2 of the 7th Indian Ocean Conference with a discussion on with his Australian counterpart. Indian Cricket Board announces the squad for the remaining 3 tests against England. Virat Kohli to miss rest of series. Akashdeep earns his maiden test call-up for India. Pakistan faces days of political horse trading after the election results released early Saturday showed no clear majority. With independent candidates mostly backed by jailed ex-Prime Minister Imran Khan's PTI winning 92 seats and no party securing a majority, Pakistan seemed poised for a hung parliament. To form a government, 133 seats in the National Assembly are needed. Leaving no stone unturned is also the former PM Nawaz Sharif, who has urged all parties to form a unity government to stabilize Pakistan.
आज हमें जो मैंडेट मिला है, जरूरी है कि दूसरी पार्टियां बैठकर मिलकर एक हुकूमत कायम करें और पाकिस्तान को इस भंवर से निकालें.
Amid the Election Commission of Pakistan drawing flack over the delay in declaration of the results of the general elections, former PM and Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf PTI founder Imran Khan released a victory speech in his AI-enabled voice, saying that Nawaz Sharif failed with the massive turnout of voters on polling day.
Fellow Pakistanis, yesterday you laid the foundation for Hakiki Azadi, true freedom, with your votes. I congratulate each and every one of you for winning the 2024 election. I had complete faith in you that you would come out and vote. Now, nothing can hinder our progress. Despite 2 years of injustice and atrocities, we have won the 2024 election with a 2/3 majority. Everyone has witnessed the power of your vote.
Amidst the turmoil, the United States, Britain and the European Union on Friday separately expressed concerns about Pakistan's electoral process and urged a probe into reported irregularities. The US and the EU both mentioned allegations of interference, including arrests of activists, and added that claims of irregularities, interference and fraud should be fully investigated. While the EU statement noted a lack of level playing field, attributing that to the inability of some political actors to contest the elections and to restrictions to freedom of assembly, freedom of expression and internet access. The EU, the US and Britain said they would work with the next government and did not congratulate any candidate or party. All right, DD India correspondent Amritpal Singh joins us for more. Amrit, it's uncertainty everywhere in Pakistan and both sides are claiming victory. So how could it play out in the coming days? Could you just update us on that?
Well, Siddharth, if you look at the numbers, nobody's got the clear numbers to even get past the halfway mark, which is 133, because out of the 266 seats, only 265 went to the polls because one candidate had died. So they need 133.
Yeah.
Nobody has touched that figure. Now, what will happen now is that, the whole process of looking for partners and parties collaborating and going into coalition is going on. We know that Nawaz Sharif has said that he's tasked his younger brother, former Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif, to talk to the PPP, and they are in talks. But even if the PPP and the PMLN come together, they still don't get past the halfway mark out of the results that have come in. We'll have to see that what they will do is they will try and look at independence try and poach. Most of these independents are what is called as PTI-backed independents. They are essentially PTI because PTI could not contest the elections, their election symbol was taken away, the cricket bat. So these candidates had to fight on local symbols. So technically, they are independents. Imran Khan will also not like to give up. What happens according to the Pakistani constitution is that the independents, after they win and become MPs, can look at joining either of the parties. So because they have, as a bloc, the PTI-backed independents have emerged as the single largest bloc, and they have numbers way above Nawaz Sharif party, PMLN. They could look at joining a smaller outfit, a smaller political party, and then boost up the numbers and look at forming a government. So, this is how it's going to play out. There's going to be a lot of horse trading, poaching. There's a breakaway faction led by Jahangir Tareen of the PTI. They've won a handful of seats. So essentially, all parties would try and see if they can cobble together a coalition. But here, of course, Nawaz Sharif has an advantage for the simple reason that one, it is being said that he's backed by the establishment, which euphemistically speaking means the army. So he has that advantage. Also, secondly, 133 is the number out of the 266 seats. Actually, in total, there are 336 seats. 70 are nominated members who are nominated according to the proportion the parties win in parliament. Now, because PTI's candidates are independent candidates, so they would not get those votes. So Nawaz Sharif or the PDM coalition, if Nawaz and the PPP come together, they would get the advantage of that and get past the 169 number required to form the government in the National Assembly of Pakistan. Siddharth.
Okay, Amrit, and can you tell us how might the uncertainty surrounding the formation of a government impact Pakistan's domestic and foreign policy priorities in the near term?
Well, uncertainty will clear out in a few days. All these permutations and combinations and the jostling for power and forming a government will take place. But the effect of this would be that whoever forms the government, it will be a weak government, which does not augur well for Pakistan per se. It may augur well for the army, because a weak prime minister and a weak government would be subservient to the army. And as you know, in Pakistan, the army plays an outsized role in Pakistan politics. But it does not augur well for the polity of Pakistan, for the simple reason that Pakistan is going through a poly crisis. It's going through a political crisis. It's going through an economic crisis. Inflation is skyrocketing, 30% inflation. Food prices are so high that it's out of the reach of majority of Pakistanis. Rationing is happening. There is a huge crisis of power. There are power outages in big cities like, even in big cities like Lahore and Karachi. I'm not even talking about hinterland Pakistan, where the situation is really bad. The rupee is at all-time low. The IMF debt renegotiations have to be carried out in a weak government. It makes it even more difficult for the lending institutions to repose faith in the system, because they don't know how long the government will last. Then, of course, there is the security crisis. We saw in the run-up to the elections how attacks took place. There are, there is the TTP. There are other Balochi groups. Then there is relationship with the neighbors, with Taliban in Afghanistan, with Iran. Then there is India. The United States and the EU and West have criticized Pakistan. So it's going through a lot of crises. It's a poly crisis. A weak government to deal with poly crisis becomes even more problematic and complicated. Siddharth.
Talking about crisis, Amrit, do you think Pakistan's next government will inherit a raft of problems? The economy, like you said, is in shambles. Terrorist attacks have resurged, including some other major issues.
Absolutely. It's going to be whoever becomes the prime minister is going to wear a crown of thorns. It's not going to be easy. And also, as we know, that none of them have got the mandate, the clear mandate. It's a fractured mandate. So that makes it even more, the road even more slippery. And the army, we all understand, is and know is a very powerful institution in Pakistan. So they will, if there is a weak civilian government, they will, their writ will run large. So of course, whoever takes over the mantle is going to inherit a huge set of problems.
All right, we leave it there. Thank you so much, Amritpal Singh, for joining in and for your analysis. Israeli military is coming up with a plan that would not only defeat Hamas, but would also help in evacuating civilians in Gaza. Now, security establishment in Israel is asked to submit to the cabinet a combined plan for evacuating the population and destroying the battalions. Over 1 million Palestinians have sought refuge in the city near the Egyptian border, prompting escalating tensions in the region. The development has prompted concern from the US. DD India's Sally Patterson tells us more.
In a televised address, US President Joe Biden says Israel's actions in Gaza had been over the top. He said, quote, "A lot of innocent people are in trouble and they're dying and it's got to stop." The president's comments are being seen as his sharpest criticism so far of Israel since the war broke out. Separately, National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said the United States would not support a major Israeli military operation in Rafah under current conditions. Just hours later, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he ordered the military to prepare a plan to evacuate civilians from Rafah ahead of an expected Israeli invasion. Israel says that after more than 4 months of war, the city is the last remaining Hamas stronghold in Gaza. Figures released by the Strip's health ministry on Friday show at least 27,000 people have been killed in Gaza since fighting began on October 7th. Meanwhile, families of hostages still being held in Gaza are demanding the release of their loved ones as the fighting rages on. Sally Patterson in New York, reporting for DD India.
India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, started the day 2 of the 7th Indian Ocean Conference with a discussion with his Australian counterpart. Jaishankar attended a fireside chat with his friend Penny Wong. Leaders discussed ties between the two countries, Indian Ocean architecture, and also shared interests in the Indo-Pacific.
In history, people from the Pacific Islands who would actually probably the greatest navigators of their times, who would come deep into the Indian Ocean. There are communities in Madagascar, Arabs who sailed from the Gulf to China. You had Indians. If you look at Indian cultural footprint, both sides, all the way to East Africa on the one side, Southeast Africa, to the Fujian coast in China.
He also lauded the relations between India, Australia, US and Japan.
This is an Indian perspective. It also reflects three very important relationships with Australia, with the US, with Japan, which have transformed after the end of the Cold War. So if you look at the big picture change and then these three key relationships, three bilateral relationships changing, then they kind of come together today to really create the Quad.
Post-discussion with FM Wong, Jaishankar visited Selauni Avenue in Perth. The avenue is named after Nain Singh Selauni, an Indian origin soldier honoured in Australia. The minister also met some of Indian veterans and community leaders there. On the sidelines of the 7th Indian Ocean Conference in Perth, EAM Jaishankar held meetings with his counterparts from the attending countries. He started Saturday with a meeting with Madagascar counterpart Rafah Waweta Fika. The two leaders discussed our bilateral relations that we hope to deepen. Earlier on Friday, Jaishankar called on Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe. Two leaders recognized in the progress in the bilateral cooperation and resolved to continue deepening them. The External Affairs Minister also held a good conversation with his Singaporean counterpart, Vivian Balakrishnan. The leaders noted the progress in our strategic partnership and exchanged views on regional and global issues. Ahead of the conference in Perth, EAM Jaishankar met with his Australian counterpart Penny Wong. Both the leaders had good exchange on comprehensive strategic partnership and convergence on matters related to the Indian Ocean. They also discussed the Indo-Pacific situation in West Asia and other regional and global topics. EAM Dr. S. Jaishankar met Mauritian Foreign Affairs Minister at Perth on Saturday. Both leaders took stock of the mutual relationship and termed it very positive. EAM Jaishankar also met parliamentarians of Australia, Varun Ghosh and Dr. Jagdish Krishnan at Perth. EAM wrote on social media platform X that he appreciated hearing on how to intensify ties with Western Australia. And still to come on DD India News Hour. An oil leak in Mexico leads to hazardous spill of gases atmosphere, prompting evacuation of over 2,000 people. Massive destruction caused by a volcanic eruption in Iceland leads to closure of public institutions. Road blockades and protests by farmers continue across Europe.
Is telepathy real or fiction? Could it soon be a reality? Imagine controlling your world with your mind. Elon Musk's brain chip promises telepathy for real. But is it safe? Is it ethical? I connect the dots to get the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. News from Russia-Ukraine conflict now. A Russian drone strike hit Ukraine's northeastern city of Kharkiv late night on Friday. A fire broke out at a petrol station due to the strike that also damaged civilian infrastructures. According to the regional governor, 7 civilians were killed in the strike. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky made a major decision to dismiss the Commander-in-Chief Valery Zaluzhny as the country faces challenges from Russia. This move marks one of the largest shakeups in Ukraine's leadership. Former head of Ukraine's ground forces, Oleksandr Syrskyi, has taken over. Zelensky emphasized the urgency for change as Kyiv's troops failed to make significant territorial gains in the recent counter-offensive against Russia, now entering its third year. DD India's Megumi Lim has more from Kyiv.
Well, the replacement of Ukraine's top commander Valery Zaluzhny does not come as a surprise. Reports had already emerged last week that Zelensky had requested for the commander to step down, but he had refused to do so at the time. He has now been replaced by the former head of Ukraine's ground forces, Oleksandr Syrskyi. Zelensky explained in his video address to the nation that urgent changes were needed after Ukraine had failed to meet its goals in last year's counteroffensive, and that the stagnation on the front lines had affected the public mood. Syrskyi is close to Zelensky and has been credited by the president for leading the Battle of Kyiv, where Russian forces were repelled from marching on the capital during the early days of the full-scale war, and for leading the surprise counteroffensive in the Kharkiv region, where swaths of territories were liberated in September of 2022. But the shakeup does come at a precarious time for Ukraine, and it is unclear whether the leadership change will improve conditions on the battlefield. Kyiv's troops are facing a critical shortage of ammunition, especially artillery shells, as additional military aid from the U.S. has been stalled for months. They're also facing a shortage of soldiers on the ground as Russia gains an upper hand on the front lines. Syrskyi outlined his plans for the war shortly after his appointment, which included the clear and detailed planning of military administration bodies and the fastest and most rational distribution of equipment and arms to the front lines. objectives that Zelensky has said were priorities for this year. Skirsky is also expected to announce a new leadership team of Ukraine's armed forces in the coming days. Megumi Lim in Kyiv, reporting for DD India.
The region was also hit by Russian shelling with guided aerial bomb. Ukraine's emergency services released a video showing rescuers pulling survivors out from under the rubble. In an unverifiable video, 3 civilians were killed while 4 civilians were rescued. US President Joe Biden and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz met at the White House amidst the reports the efforts to secure support for Ukraine. As European governments express mounting concern over the delay in US lawmakers approving new aid for Kyiv's battle against Russia. DD India's Nick Harper presents more insights from Washington.
Well, plenty for the two leaders to discuss here in Washington, D.C. The war in Ukraine, efforts to strengthen the NATO alliance and the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas. It was the 6th time that these two men have met as the leaders of their countries, and much of the discussions this Friday revolved around Ukraine and its impact on NATO. Because the US Senate this week failed to pass a bill that would have provided around $60 billion in aid to Ukraine. Republicans in the House of Representatives, who would have voted on the proposal next, had already signalled that they were going to stand in opposition to this bill. So it means that new military assistance and financial aid to Kiev remains in limbo, and that is worrying many US allies in Europe. Now, the two leaders didn't hold a press conference, but before they got into their discussions, they said very much that they hoped that Republicans would be able to stop their opposition to funding new assistance to Kiev.
Congress, we have to pass a national security spending package now. Our House members are being somewhat reluctant. Hopefully it's more politics than real, but including funding for Ukraine and to help them continue to defend themselves against the brutal aggression of Russia.
Germany's now the second largest provider of money to Ukraine after the United States. And earlier on Friday, Scholz met with US senators, after which he said that he was confident that a decision on further military aid for Ukraine would be made soon.
Germany was ready to increase its support with weapon delivery. And hopefully the Congress, the House will follow you and make a decision on giving the necessary support, because without the support of the United States and without the support of the European states, Ukraine will have not a chance to defend its own country.
However, there are also lingering concerns about the US's relationship with NATO if Biden does not win a second term in November's presidential election. Former President Donald Trump, Biden's likely challenger, has threatened to withdraw military and financial aid to Ukraine in its fight against Russia, and he's also questioned whether the US should even be part of the Western military alliance. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
And former US President Donald Trump secured a landslide victory in the Nevada Republican Party's caucus, claiming 99% of the vote and all of the state's delegates. This win further solidifies his lead in the race for the presidential nominee, with his closest competitor, Nikki Haley, not even present on the ballot. This significant triumph reflects Trump's dominance within the party. DD India's correspondent Benji Hire reports for more.
Look, whilst Nevada will be hotly contested in the November presidential election, this result was a foregone conclusion. The only other person facing off against Donald Trump was Pastor Ryan Binkley, Trump's closest serious challenger. Former United Nations ambassador and former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley had opted not to take part in the Nevada caucus, claiming it had been rigged for Trump. She appeared in the primary vote earlier this week instead, amid a dispute between the political parties in the state. But she lost in that primary anyway, embarrassingly beaten by the none of these candidates option. Pledging to prevent what she calls a coronation, Haley's vowed to continue competing, despite coming second to Trump in votes in Iowa and New Hampshire, outcomes which set him on course to becoming the Republican Party's presumptive nominee for the presidency. Her last shot at turning things around comes next month in South Carolina, in her home state's primary, where again Trump leads in the polls. The embattled former president still remains the favourite to take on Democrat incumbent Joe Biden for the White House, even as Mr. Trump faces multiple criminal trials for his alleged mishandling of classified documents and attempts to overturn the 2020 election. He's pleaded not guilty to all charges, framing his prosecutions as political persecution by his opponents. Benji Haya in Washington, reporting for DD India.
Former President Donald Trump said on Friday that if re-elected, he would reverse all the gun restrictions enacted by President Joe Biden. Speaking to thousands of supporters at an event organized by the National Rifle Association, Trump vowed to rescind a rule restricting sales of gun accessories known as pistol braces and other restrictions put in place by the Biden administration.
If Biden is not going to be charged, he said, that's up to them. You know, look, if he's not going to be charged, that's up to them. But then I should not be charged. This is nothing more than selective persecution of Biden's political opponent, me. And I don't know that it's Biden, because I don't think he knows he's alive. But it's...
Europe's farmers continue to express their dissatisfaction through protests, blocking roads, using tractors and tires to make their voices heard. DD India's Pablo Gutierrez reports from Budapest.
European farmers are upset about a series of issues. Many of their grievances revolve around the European Union's Green Deal, which aims for climate neutrality by 2050. Farmers argue that their profits aren't sufficient to invest in sustainable agriculture and are demanding more assistance from the EU, despite the bloc already allocating around $300 billion in aid over the next 3 years. They are also angry at rising expenses caused by inflation, which has led to higher costs for essentials like grain and diesel. In addition, they are protesting against the EU's free trade agreements with other countries, fearing that these deals will enable foreign farmers to undercut their prices. Here in Hungary, farmers have been demonstrating against the European Union opening up its market to agricultural imports from the Ukraine, which they say are undercutting their products. In addition to demonstrations in city centers like Barcelona and Paris, farmers have blocked major roads with tractors and their tires and have even resorted to burning bales and spraying liquid manure at government buildings. Protesters are marching with banners declaring no farmers, no food, and emphasizing their opposition to the EU's agricultural and climate policies. Pablo Gutierrez in Budapest reporting for DD India.
And a state-run oil company in Mexico suffered a leak causing a fuel stream up to 15 meters and accumulation of gases in the atmosphere on Friday. The leak was blocked later, but no cause of the leak was reported. Over 2,000 people were evacuated. However, no victims were reported. Iceland's volcanic eruption left a trail of damages to the region on Friday. Pipelines which supply hot water were also cut as lava hit the pipes. Schools, kindergartens, museums and other public institutions in the region were closed. About 15 million cubic meters of molten rock had flowed from the ground in the first 7 hours of the eruption, according to Icelandic Meteorological Office. However, the eruption, which began on Thursday, appears to have ended. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Largest book fair of the year, New Delhi World Book Fair 2024 begins today. 11th World Government Summit to be held in Dubai from 12th to 14th of February. India to participate as guest of honor at the summit. The Kaziranga National Park and Tiger Reserve records a whooping influx of tourists since October.
String of Bharat Ratnas to people who contributed their best in the progress of the nation and were still somewhere considered unrecognized or perhaps ignored.
It wouldn't be an overstatement to say that there is only one national party in India. If you look at the Congress, the last 3 months, they have been on a self-destructive mode.
Rahul Gandhi is enumerating the number of bureaucrats who are OBCs. It remains to be seen how Congress party's double standard on OBC reservation and the whole matter will be seen by the larger public.
I can quote a number of opposition leaders, including Omar Abdullah, and all these people have started saying, let's look toward 29-29.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj, and let's have a look at the headlines once again. Pakistan Army Chief calls for stable hands, healing touch as election results show no clear winner. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu orders army to prepare to evacuate hundreds of thousands of Palestinians from Gaza's Rafah. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar starts day 2 of the 7th Indian Ocean Conference with a discussion with his Australian counterpart. Indian Cricket Board announces the squad for the remaining 3 tests against England. Virat Kohli to miss rest of series. Akashdeep earns his maiden test call-up for India. President of India Draupadi Murmu addressed at the inaugural ceremony of Adi Mahotsav 2024, an annual national tribal festival at Major Dhyan Chand National Stadium in the national capital. It will showcase diversity of India's tribal heritage till 18th of February.
आज यहाँ मुझे विभिन्न राज्यों की जनजातीय संस्कृति और विरासत का एक अनूठा संगम देखने को मिला है। उनकी बोली, भाषा, शिल्प, खान-पान, संगीत और पारंपरिक कला भारत की सांस्कृतिक विरासत का जीवंत उदाहरण है। हमारा जनजातीय समुदाय आधुनिक विकास के लाभों से वंचित रहे, ये उचित नहीं है। देश के समग्र विकास में उनके योगदान की महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका रही है और भविष्य में भी रहेगी।
Today is the last day of the budget session of the Indian Parliament. The lower house began with a discussion on the construction of the Ram Temple in Ayodhya. Senior BJP leader Satyapal Singh initiated the discussion on the construction of Ram Temple in Ayodhya and the consecration ceremony of Ram Lala. Upper house held short discussion on white paper. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also expected to address the House as the final Parliament session before the Lok Sabha election concludes today. The budget session of Parliament is scheduled to conclude today. The Bharatiya Janata Party presented the Ram Temple resolution in the lower house of the Parliament. BJP MP Satyapal Singh, who initiated the discussion on the Ram Temple, said that it is historic to witness the Pran Pratishtha in Ayodhya. India's Information and Broadcasting Minister Anurag Thakur said that the Ram Mandir was, is and will always be the center of faith.
राम मंदिर तो हमारे लिए आस्था का केंद्र था भी है और सदा रहेगा भी। लेकिन वो लोग जो प्रश्न चिन्ह उठाते थे कि बीजेपी वाले कहते हैं रामलला हम आएंगे, मंदिर वहीं बनाएंगे, लेकिन तारीख नहीं बताएंगे। हमने तारीख बताई भी, राम मंदिर का निर्माण किया भी और जनता ने पूरे देश भर में राममय वातावरण हो भी गया है। और ये नमो हैट्रिक यही बताती है कि आएंगे तो मोदी ही।
All right, and DD India correspondent Vikas Arthi joins us live for more. Vikas, it's the last day of the budget session. Could you update us about what all happened in both houses of Indian Parliament till now?
Right, Siddharth. So not only is the last day of this budget session, but it's also the last day of the 17th Lok Sabha. And right now, as of now, in the Lok Sabha, Speaker has given an opportunity to prominent leader of all political parties to share their experience of 17th Lok Sabha. And a few minutes back, we heard that NCP leader Supriya Sule was speaking, and all parties have been given an opportunity to share their experience. And we expect that this discussion will be over by 5 p.m. Since, as you just mentioned, that House was discussing earlier the achievement, the historic day of of the construction of Ram Temple and Pran Pratishthan of Shri Ram Lala Virajman. So that was the discussion in the Lok Sabha, and as of now, Siddharth, in Rajya Sabha is also discussing the same issue. In Rajya Sabha, just half an hour back, BJP MP Sudhanshu Trivedi started that discussion, and we expect that it will also be over by 3 to 4 hour discussion. So the issue was discussed in both is being discussed in the Rajya Sabha, and Lok Sabha has already discussed. We expect that all the member of the prominent parties will speak in 1 hour, and after that, speaker will also give next information that what will be the next agenda.
All right, and Vikas, also, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also expected to speak in Lok Sabha in a while now. Any information on that?
Right, so Prime Minister is expected to speak at around 5 p.m. and before that we heard Home Minister also spoke in the Lok Sabha today and underlined the challenges before fulfilling the promise of Ram Temple in Ayodhya, that how the government ensured that this issue is settled. It was a long pending issue, and when Prime Minister will speak at around 5 p.m. then again Prime Minister will also speak his experience of Lok Sabha, as well as this promise of Ram Temple at the Janmbhoomi was achieved, how the government ensured that that the people get Ram Temple. It should not remain a mere promise, since opposition MPs used to say that the BJP says that mandir wahi banayenge, tarikh nahi batayenge. So in fact, Home Minister also hit it out at the opposition that now the temple is complete. Still, opposition is trying to find out small issues in such an important day, such an historic day, when Indian Parliament is discussing this historic moment when Ram Temple constructed not only within the stipulated time, and we are now witnessing an elegant and we also can witness the lakhs of devotees coming each and every day. So Home Minister also responded to in the Lok Sabha on the ongoing discussion, and Prime Minister is likely to speak at 5 p.m. Siddharth.
All right, we leave it there. Thank you so much, Vikas Sarthi, for joining in and for your analysis. India's Union Home Minister Amit Shah on Saturday announced that Citizenship Amendment Act 2019 will be notified and implemented before the upcoming Lok Sabha elections, he said, while speaking at the ET Now Global Business Summit. Here's a report. India's Union Home Minister made a big announcement on Saturday while speaking at the ET Now Global Business Summit. The minister said that the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019 will be notified and implemented before the upcoming Lok Sabha election.
CAA देश का कानून है, इसका नोटिफिकेशन निश्चित रूप से हो जाएगा. चुनाव के पहले ही सीएए को अमल में आना है, इसमें किसी को कंफ्यूजन रखना नहीं है.
Union Minister Shah further stressed that the act is to provide citizenship and not to take away anyone's citizenship. The Citizenship Amendment Act, or CAA, was passed in the Indian Parliament on December 11, 2019, amending the Citizenship Act of 1955 after facing persecution in Pakistan, Afghanistan and Bangladesh. Citizenship Amendment Act 2019 enables 6 minority communities to apply for Indian citizenship. 6 minority communities from 3 specified countries in India because of persecution on grounds of their religion to apply for Indian citizenship. It does not amend any existing legal provision. CAA has been in public domain since 2016. CAA was cleared by a 30-member parliamentary committee from both houses. Central government will frame rules to operationalize the provisions of CAA. Migrants will have to apply online, and the competent authority would see whether they fulfill all the qualifications for registration or naturalization as an Indian citizen. This act was introduced by Prime Minister Narendra Modi-led government with an aim to confer Indian citizenship to refugees who came to India before December 2014. With Nikita's report, Siddharth Bharadwaj, DD India. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the Vikasit Bharat, Vikasit Gujarat program through video conferencing today. And during the program, the Prime Minister virtually dedicated and laid the foundation stone of over 1.3 lakh houses across Gujarat, built under PM Awas Yojana and other housing schemes.
10 साल में
25 करोड़ लोग गरीबी से बाहर निकले हैं। सरकार इन 25 करोड़ लोगों के साथ हर कदम पर खड़ी रही और इन 25 करोड़ साथियों ने सरकार की योजनाओं का लाभ उठाया, सही तरीके से पैसों का उपयोग किया, योजना के लिए अपने जीवन को बराबर ढाला और 25 करोड़ लोग गरीबी को परास्त करने में सफल हो गए। यानी मेरे नए 25 करोड़ साथी बन गए जिन्होंने गरीबी को परास्त किया है। आपको कल्पना आती है कि मुझे कितना आनंद होता होगा, मेरा विश्वास कितना बढ़ गया कि हाँ, ये योजनाएं हमें गरीबी से बाहर निकाल सकती है। युवा हमारे देश का अन्नदाता, हमारा किसान, हमारी मातृशक्ति, हमारी नारी बहनें, ये विकसित भारत के आधार स्तंभ है। इसलिए इनका सशक्तिकरण हमारी प्रतिबद्धता है। और जब मैं गरीब की बात करता हूं तो उसमें हर समाज के परिवार आते हैं। ये घर मिल रहे हैं तो उसमें हर जाति के गरीब परिवार है। मुफ्त राशन मिल रहा है तो हर जाति के लाभार्थी को मिल रहा है। मुफ्त इलाज मिल रहा है तो हर जाति के गरीब लाभार्थी को मिल रहा है। सस्ती खाद मिल रही है तो हर जाति के किसान को मिल रही है। पीएम किसान सम्मान निधि हर जाति के किसान को मिल रही है।
A day after India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced Bharat Ratna, highest civilian award for former Prime Ministers P.V. Narasimha Rao and Chaudhry Charan Singh, and father of Green Revolution Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, Union Minister Piyush Goyal said that it's a moment of pride that PM Modi gave respect to Chaudhry Charan Singh by awarding him the Bharat Ratna.
हम सबके लिए इतनी गर्व की बात है कि माननीय चौधरी चरण सिंह जी को प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने सही सम्मान दिया, भारत रत्न दिया। चाहे चौधरी चरण सिंह जी को भारत रत्न देने की बात हो, श्री नरसिम्हा राव जी को भारत रत्न देने की बात हो, डॉक्टर M.S. स्वामीनाथन को भारत रत्न देने की बात हो, ये तो पूरे देश को उल्लास और गर्व के साथ इसको सेलिब्रेट करना चाहिए।
The Principal Secretary to India's PM, Pramod Kumar Mishra, while addressing an event in Sambalpur in Indian state of Odisha, spoke about economic growth.
We are now striving for becoming a developed country by 2047, the Viksit Bharat, and we need to achieve a high growth trajectory, not only a high growth trajectory, but the growth should be sustainable, because high growth which is not sustainable is not meaningful. Hence, the type of approach we follow today, the type of strategy we adopt are extremely relevant for the next 2.5 decades.
And the 51st edition of the New Delhi World Book Fair begins today, featuring over 2,000 stalls with books in multiple languages. Week-long fair at Bharat Mandapam also marks the inauguration of a national e-library where books can be accessed and downloaded for free. Dubai is primed to serve as the venue for the forthcoming 11th World Government Summit, scheduled from February 12 to 14. The summit's overarching theme, shaping the governments of the future, underscores its forward-looking agenda. Notably, India, Turkey and Qatar have been designated as esteemed guests of honor for the 2024 edition. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is slated to deliver a keynote address during the summit proceedings on February 14th. And let's take a look at other stories making news. The joint military exercise Sada Tanseek between Indian Army and Saudi Arabia concludes at Mahajan Field firing ranges in Indian state of Rajasthan. The exercise facilitated synergy in the conduct of joint tactical operations and strengthened the interoperability between the two armed forces. The Kaziranga National Park and Tiger Reserve in India's Assam has witnessed all-time high tourist footfall. According to the park authorities, nearly 180,000 visitors, including both foreign and domestic, have already visited the national park so far after it was opened in October last year. The river tourism of the park and new tourism areas like Biswanath and Burachapori are catching the attraction of the tourists. And still to come on DD Indian News Hour. Addressing the 8th edition of the Global Business Summit 2024, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi said every development expert group in the world is discussing India's transformation journey in the last 10 years. And Indian tourists can now purchase tickets for Eiffel Tower via UPI. Jordan to lock horns with defending champion Qatar in the final of the AFC Asian Cup.
Is telepathy real or fiction? Could it soon be a reality? Imagine controlling your world with your mind. Elon Musk's brain chip promises telepathy for real. But is it safe? Is it ethical? I connect the dots to get the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots on DD India.
You're watching DD Indian News Hour. I am Siddharth Bharadwaj. While applauding India's growth, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that every development expert group in the world is discussing India's transformation journey in the last 10 years. He was addressing the 8th edition of Global Business Summit 2024 held in New Delhi on Friday. The summit was themed on disruption, development and diversification.
The Times Global Business Summit aimed to address major issues like world politics, economy and diplomacy. While addressing the largest business conference in Asia, PM Modi declared it as India's moment, comparing Davos to a business-oriented Kumbh Mela and stressed on the growing trust towards India in the world.
इस बार समिट की जो थीम रखी है, मैं समझता हूं वो थीम इटसेल्फ बहुत अहम है। डिसरप्शन, डेवलपमेंट और डाइवर्सिफिकेशन। आज के इस दौर में ये बहुत ही चर्चित शब्द है और डिसरप्शन, डेवलपमेंट एंड डाइवर्सिफिकेशन की इस चर्चा में कोई इस बात पर सहमत है कि भारत का समय है। दिस इज इंडिया's टाइम।
Focusing on India's developmental journey, PM Modi also said that there comes a time when all the circumstances are in the favor of the country. He said that it is during this time when the country makes itself strong for centuries to come.
ये टाइम पीरियड, ये कालखंड वाकई अभूतपूर्व है। एक प्रकार से वर्चुअस साइकिल शुरू हुई है। ये वो समय है जब हमारी ग्रोथ रेट लगातार बढ़ रही है और हमारा फिस्कल डेफिसिट घट रहा है।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi asserted that India is on the path to becoming the third largest economy in the world. He also expressed confidence that the present government's third term will witness huge decisions and preparations are already underway for new schemes to eliminate poverty while giving a new impetus to India's development.
हमारे तीसरे टर्म में देश इकोनॉमी में दुनिया में नंबर 3 तक पहुंच जाएगा। तीसरे टर्म में और भी बड़े फैसले होने जा रहे हैं। भारत की गरीबी दूर करने, भारत के विकास को नई गति देने के लिए हमने नई योजनाओं की तैयारी पिछले 1.5 साल से मैं कर रहा हूं और बहुत एक दिशा में कैसे काम करूंगा, कहां ले जाऊंगा, इसका पूरा रोड मैप मैं बना रहा हूं.
Praising India's governance model, Prime Minister also said that it is moving forward on 2 streams simultaneously. He emphasized that on one hand, the challenges of the 20th century are being addressed, while on the other hand, the government is striving to fulfill the aspirations of the 21st century.
It is one of the most iconic landmarks in the world, and it's just gotten easier for Indians to visit. The Eiffel Tower is now accepting UPI to purchase tickets. And as Tony Waterman reports, France may be the first country in Europe to use the Indian government's mobile payment platform, but it's unlikely to be the last.
Every year, roughly 300,000 Indian nationals visit France, and topping their must-see list is this, the Eiffel Tower. Indians are the second largest group of visitors to the iconic Paris landmark, and for the very first time, they can now buy their tickets using rupee. The National Payments Corporation of India's international arm has partnered with French e-commerce payments platform Lyra to make the transactions seamless. Users simply use their UPI-powered apps to scan a QR code initiating the payment, and then use their tickets at the Eiffel Tower.
It's very simple and very transparent. When you pay with a card, you never know what is the change rate, what is the commission, and how much you're gonna pay. Here it's completely transparent because when you pay, you know exactly how much rupee will be deducted on your account.
With over 380 million users, UPI is widely accepted in India. There were more than 12 billion transactions last month alone, but the mobile payment platform is still trying to make inroads abroad. The plan, the companies say, is to start rolling it out to retail shops and restaurants across Paris before a broader push across the continent and beyond. It's part of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's goal of internationalizing the rupee and exporting Indian technology. On social media, he said that the partnership marks a significant step towards taking UPI global. And starting with the Eiffel Tower is certainly one way to get noticed. Tony Waterman in Paris, France, reporting for DD India.
And Praveen Kumar, an engineer from Chennai, deserves a great deal of credit for his work in creating this assistive technology for people with impairments, particularly those who are amputees of the upper limbs or lack motor control over their hands and fingers.
People can interact with digital gadgets by using technology to operate smart devices. Mouseware was introduced in 2022 and currently implementing it in the market to gauge its performance. Praveen Kumar, the founder and CEO of Dextroware, who is banking on the product's exposure to global market.
Myself, Dr. Naunita Gangwani. Presently, I'm working as a senior resident in Department of Physiology. So I have to make a lot of PowerPoint presentations and all for the students. So it's always a task to make the lecture easy and simple so that they can understand. Since my hands were not that functional, so like I used to do all the PowerPoint work and all the digital things and research work on my mobile phone. Like I used to use it like the way you use your fingertips to move the touch screen. I used to use my nose tip, and then I think it was July or somewhere in 21, I think I got the product for the first time. Now I can do all the other things also which I want.
According to an Indian research, 40,000 or so people lose an upper limb annually, and 85% of those individuals live their life without any hope of recovery.
When I was in my final year of graduation in Rajalakshmi Engineering College, so I had a prototype made which is called Mouseware, which enables hands-free control of computers and phones with simple head movements. So I thought, while there are many wheelchairs, crutches and canes out there available, which have been known to the society for decades, why not make a new type of assistive technology which can enable people with disabilities to control computers and phones with ease? So raising funds or getting the attention for technologies for people with disabilities was a bit of challenge, but thanks to all the support system around us that helped us in all these causes, we were able to get and support. We are launching new updates in the future where they can even control